Peace. Thank you so much for joining me today at Manifestation Monday morning meeting. All right. My name is Peter Abundant, aka Dr. Abundant. My mission is to help conscious individuals to achieve goals by means of advanced manifestation education. So, what I do is I help you to become a truly conscious creator of your reality, thus creating the reality that you want. And by that, getting, creating, materializing, manifesting the things that you desire, ultimately living your life and understanding that you are responsible, but you are somebody who is in absolute control over everything that you're experiencing in your life. So therefore, you can experience anything that you desire. So I have some great announcements to share with you today that I'm excited about. One of them is this book right behind me called The Creator, Manifestation, The Art of Life. And what I want to do is I want to let you know that this journey that you're taking with me is going to be a special one. When you follow me, when you decide that you feel like I'm somebody that resonates with your spirit, and the education and the insight that I share with you is something that you can take with you and add to your life and bring value to your life, it means a lot to me. I have a lot of people going online, sharing comments, stating their appreciation for what I'm sharing. And I want to say that I appreciate it even more when it really resonates with people. Because one of the things that many of us deal with when we are sharing information, when we are sharing our insights, our thoughts, our wisdom, is sometimes the ego can have this little voice of wondering, is it making a difference? Am I resonating with people? Does it matter, right? Are people actually getting the information, and is it really supporting and helping people the way that we want it to? And so when we get back feedback stating that it is, then it validates the mission. It validates the goal and the intention. So it means the world to me personally when I get, feedback like that. So today what I'm going to be also doing is responding to questions that people have had on, say, YouTube channel or social media in response to the videos that I've been posting. That way you can have a space where you can, hear me when I explain or elaborate on particular questions and thoughts, because sometimes writing it on a comment just really doesn't give it justice, even though I try to be as direct and straightforward as possible with that. But I realize that this is the best opportunity for me to address those questions. So anytime you have questions about something that I've said and some thoughts on it that you're not quite clear about, you can just put it in my comments. And my mission is to go through those comments, take note of those questions, so that way I can address them at this particular manifestation meeting, okay? Because it's about being clear, so that way you don't have any doubts or confusions about the journey and the path that you're on, and how what I'm sharing with you can support you, all right? That's my objective, that's my job. I'm a PhD ordained minister in metaphysical sciences, right? What is metaphysical sciences? A lot of people may ask, and that is the study of spirituality when you ask me personally, right? Metaphysical means meta-physical. It means beyond the physical, right? It means more of the intangible things, the things that we feel, right? Our spirit, our soul, right? Things of that nature. And so when you get into metaphysics, though it can get into the realms of crystals and astrology and things like the zodiac signs and numbers and angel numbers and soulmates or twin flames, what I specialize in is consciousness, reality creation, conscious creation, manifestation. That's ultimately my goal, and I've learned to understand that really what that means is helping you achieve your goals, right? Goal setting, mindset, but using spiritual principles to help you and support you along the journey. Because I believe that though the techniques of how to do something is very important, practicality is very important, how you connect with yourself is more important, right? How you connect with spirit, how you connect with and see yourself and understand the intricacies, the nuances of yourself, coming into harmony with yourself, true acceptance and in love with yourself is in fact how you align and create that which you desire, right? Because it starts with being in true balance. And the last few videos, the last few weeks, I've been talking about balancing, particularly balancing consciousness and ego. And really, the interesting thing about that is coming into the realization that the true balance of consciousness and ego is really about recognizing that the proper way to be balanced is to be imbalanced, meaning that consciousness should be a little bit more dominant, a little bit more expressive on this journey than the ego. You see, most times when we think balance, we're literally thinking about the balances of two things, meaning that those two things are exactly even with one another. And what that looks like to me is stagnation. When your consciousness and your ego is exactly the same, then not many things is happening. You're going back and forth. There's a lot more conflict than peace. There's a lot more hesitation, procrastination than there is action. And so truly your goal is to be led by consciousness, right? To let your consciousness guide you and push you and move you, or pull you along the way of your journey. And so when you are mindful about that and consciously letting that happen, then your ego tends to fall back. It tends to be more manageable. All right. Now, the trick is in spirituality, a lot of people talk about this concept of the ego death, quieting the ego, killing the ego, not having an ego. The ego is required. The ego is required in this physical realm, this physical reality that we're in. As far as I'm concerned, if you're on earth, if you have a physical body, you need an ego. The ego is the part of you that is a protector, right? It allows you to be in a space where you are mindful of your physical space, your physical boundary. So that way you can protect yourself. Because before we developed this civilized world, we were in a space where things were more chaotic, things were more violent, there was more disease, right? So we had to be mindful about our engagement, our interactions, right? Nature, other creatures, other animals. We had to be mindful about protecting ourselves from those things, thus having mechanisms like fight or flight, right? That is something that is a trigger to help you to survive so that way you live longer with this experience called being a human being. You have a longer experience. And so as we're on the spiritual journey, we have to recognize that the ego is a part of the journey. Just like when we think about all aspects of the universe consists of halves, right? Or contrasts. Good, bad, right? Up, down, the sun, the moon, yin, yang. And so when we think about the yin and yang of who you are, we're talking about consciousness, we're talking about the ego. And so it's important for you to recognize that with that, you have to understand that you must recognize both aspects of yourself in order to truly be complete and whole and in balance. You see? So that is the mission here. That is the objective. Now, let's get into the announcement. This is very important. This is something I'm going to be talking about, mentioning to you all week, all up until Friday, okay? This book here, The Creator, Manifestation, the Art of Life, is free. It's available to you for free. It is on Kindle, Amazon Kindle. So if you have a smartphone, which we all do, you can download the Kindle app. When you download the Kindle app, you can find my book. The link will be in the description. You will find my book. It is free. The Kindle version is free for the next 5 days. What I want you to do is I want you to go download the app if you don't have it already. look for the book, Creator, okay, by Peter Abundant. When you download that book, of course, I want you to read the book. This is, out of all the books that I've written, this is the best one right now, okay? This is the most impactful, most powerful book that I've written so far. What I want you to do is read through the book. Then I want you to leave a review, all right? I want you to leave your honest opinion about the book, about the information, about what resonates with you about the book. So that way, what it does is it helps the book to actually gain more exposure and momentum. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be releasing numerous books, right? Every week, every few weeks. Some books are going to have different styles, okay? Now, this book is more of a traditional style of book where it is giving you step-by-step guidance and understanding toward you as a creator of your reality and actually how to create mindfully the things that you desire. Whereas I'm going to have other books that are going to be paperback books, and those books are designed more like, books where you can literally open up any section of the book and you have a paragraph or a statement that supports you on your journey. So it's almost like a book with quotes, but it's not. It's more than just quotes. It gives you actual insight. Okay. So these are the things that I'm going to be creating. And as I create those things, I'm going to be publishing them on Amazon and I'm going to be sharing them with you for free. So this means that you get more insight and you get things that are normally paid for free by simply following me. Okay. So I'm going to mention this again. Go to Kindle. Okay. For the next 5 days, Monday through Friday, this book on Kindle will be available for free. Make sure you get it. All right. It's an amazing book. It's one of my favorite books personally. If I didn't write it myself, I would have the book and I would be reading it. All right. So get this book, Creator, Manifestation, The Art of Life by Dr. Peter Abundant, or you can just put Peter Abundant. All right. So that's one of the main things that I'm up to is figuring out a way to give you as much value as possible. Now, by means of giving you this value, by giving you these free books that I'm going to be publishing, because I'm making a lot of content. I'm making a lot of videos. I'm making content and videos every day on YouTube. That information is just not going on YouTube. That information is also being packaged in a way that I can create books, different styles of books to make sure that people have different forms of access to me. Just like I write a blog every day, right? In relationship to the video that I posted. I'm also going to be compiling that information into books. And so I'm thinking of numerous ways that I can bring this information together, package it in numerous ways because we all consume information differently. And so it's important. A book is important because it is a lot of like focus, intentional focus on the information. Whereas when we're watching or listening to a video, we're often doing other things. And that's fine, because it is still being absorbed by your subconscious mind. You are still learning from it. But there is something to be said about when you read something, when you look at the words, right? Because the words are very, very powerful. So when you're looking at the words, seeing the words, reading the words, and then also visualizing, right, the application of the techniques, then you are truly tapping into more ways of actually learning and absorbing the information. And so what I decided to do was, okay, I can package these things up into books and I can also have you get access to this information for free while supporting me at getting reviews and exposure to actually get more insight as to what it is that you want, right? What do you like about the books that I'll be releasing? And ultimately helping to grow the population, the popularity of the book or the books. Okay. So check it out. The Creator. It's a lovely book. I love this book. It's a really good book. Okay. I'm really proud of this book. So it's one of those things that people would be like, why are you giving it away for free? Well, if somebody's a fan of me, and a fan of my work and my information, then I want to give you this for free. That's the thing, is like, I love giving things away. Yeah, we all want to make money, but I really want you to be able to take this information and make a difference in your life and take real control and be empowered to do the things that you want to do in your life. So that's why I'm doing this. So it's for this week only. It is going to be free on Kindle. If you want to actually buy the physical book, all right, the physical book is available on Amazon for $34.99. $34.99. All of these books. So this is part of my what I call God Consciousness series. It is going to be a series of 7 books. All right, this is the second book. The first book is The Sleeping God, right? This is the first book. All right, then this is the second book. All right, so you can see here, it says book 1, and then here it says book 2. Okay, now this is the first 2 books of the series. When you go on and you look at this book, you'll see that it is part of a series. And so I'm going to be building out the series over time, but these books are hardcover books only, part of the series. It just represents like the style of the book, the quality of the book is different. The book is designed to really go deep. Okay, these books are designed to really go deep into tapping into what's going on, all right, and how to really create the reality that you want. Whereas the other books, which is going to be soft cover books, those books are going to be more of a theoretical, more of a conceptual, right? You're reading it just to just to read a section of it, or you can read the whole book straight through. But you can read a section of it and you can take something away with it, right? And you can contemplate it and meditate on it for the day. All right. You can read a section and just sit with it. You can read a section with your partner, with your friends, and you can like talk about it and have a discussion about it. So those books are going to be slightly different. Those books are easier for me to put together. I have like a skill when it comes to writing and compiling and creating books. And so, at first I had this conversation of like, well, if I can make a lot of books, how is that going to look, right? Some people may be like, oh, he's making a lot of books, but it's not that hard, 1. And 2, I want the information out there and accessible to as many people as possible. Not everybody is on YouTube looking for information, believe it or not. There's still a group of people who go to Amazon or their local bookstore to get information. And so, though I know the value of digital media platforms are very important nowadays, still having something physical is just something amazing and beautiful. And I think that is something important that we all should have. Okay. Now, let's get into some of these questions that people asked me this past week in relationship to the videos that I had created. Now, the videos I've been focusing on were in relationship to understanding consciousness and the ego, and understanding that the duality between those two things is important for you to recognize those things, because throughout the spiritual journey, we often focus only on consciousness. We tend to neglect or want to kill the ego, and that's not a complete picture as far as I'm concerned. And so my message is to share with you that the ego is not your enemy. It is not the villain, even though if the ego is mismanaged and is aggressive and is not put in its proper place, yes, you can turn into the villain, because now the ego, which is wanting to separate you from everything, wanting to, identify everything as a threat and sees and expresses fear in everything that you do, then you're going to manifest yourself and live out this kind of a villain mindset. Okay. So, all right. So somebody had questions. Some people had questions. One of the questions about the ego is, are we born with the ego, and when does it develop? This is a very good question, because I had to meditate on it myself when asked it. And particularly questions that I had to like really meditate on, I really focus on sharing with you. So I think the ego is essentially a different aspect of consciousness. So when you think about asking the question, is the ego something that we're born with? Well, then I had to ask myself, is consciousness something we are born with? The answer I would say is yes, we're born with that. Now, is it developed? No, right? It is the slightest spark of something. And as we grow from being born, right, being a fetus to, being a toddler, it's like we are developing, being a adolescent, we are developing, right? And then eventually we are getting to a point where we have an awareness, right? We have a sense of like, okay, I'm living this life, this human life. I am this boy, I am this girl, right? I have thought. You start to coming into the awareness of consciousness. You see, you start to come into an ownership or awareness of self. Now, that was always there, but it doesn't take shape until at a certain point where you come into a blossoming of this awareness, right? And so the ego is the same because, again, the consciousness and the ego are two halves of the same whole. They are essentially you, but from different spectrums or different sides of the spectrum of you. Consciousness, you can say, is your truest, most authentic self. Whereas ego, because we live in this physical world, is can be called your false self, but it is still yourself. Okay. And when I say false, that doesn't mean that it is necessarily fake, but it is a very superficial expression of self. All right. It's very shallow. And so a lot of times we identify with those things. I'm a boy, I'm a girl, I am African American, I am Caucasian, I am this, I am that, right? I am, you know, I was born in this area, I was brought up in this area, I'm a New Yorker, whatever. All these different things you start to identify as a picture of who you are based on your experiences. Now, that said, ego and even consciousness to a certain degree, but more so the ego can be something that is developed and influenced greatly by your upbringing. So, however you were brought up, raised, it will essentially be implanted or it will be influencing your ego, right? And your subconscious mind. They are related and thus essentially create the stories of the ego. Okay. So if something traumatic were to happen to you as you were growing up, then that is going to be implanted in your subconscious mind and also your ego. All right. And that your ego is going to want to create protective mechanisms, coping mechanisms to prevent you from experiencing something that you experienced before. Right. And what happens though is because your conscious mind isn't directly involved in the creation of those triggers, the creation of those programs, those reflexes, you have to practice mindfulness when those things are triggered, right? So if you experience a traumatic experience with a dog, right, when you were young, you're gonna be you're gonna come and raise and be and develop into an adult who will likely be scared of dogs because of that traumatic experience. You are now somebody that identifies that dogs are dangerous, that identifies with the fear of being around a dog because you were bit by a dog when you were a kid. Okay. Now that can apply to anything else, right? If you were raised and your parents told you that, you're broke, that we're poor, that can be an implant that is essentially a belief system that is created, right, by your ego. And thus, every time you think about money or concerned about money, then there is a story that is created. There is an identity there that you are poor, that you will always be broke, that you're not good with money. So you have to be mindful about those things. And that is where mindfulness, self-awareness comes in. Because when you start to see those patterns come up, then you can essentially ask yourself, okay, is this productive? Is this really true? And when you do that, that is where the transformation happens. That is where you and how you change the paradigm. That is how you change the belief system. You first have to acknowledge it. You first have to go into asking yourself the questions, is this real? Okay, is this something based on truth, right? Is it based on my real experience? Or is it something that I took on as my reality? And is this something that is fundamentally true with everybody, right? That's the one I like to ask. Is it fundamentally true with everybody? And if it isn't, and other people are quote unquote exceptions to the rule, then that means I can decide to be the exception as well. And I can decide that if this doesn't work for me, if this doesn't really help me to get to where I want to go, then there is no point in continuing to hold on to this belief system. I can change it. All right. And thus you decide to change it. So ego is something that we're born with. But just like consciousness, it blossoms at a certain age, right? When we are children, when we come into the awareness of it, then it is the ego particularly is influenced by our childhood and the things that happen to us. So as you are an adult and you are raising children, this is ultimately the part where you become a conscious parent and you are mindful about what's happening to your child. Now, I'm not saying that you are overprotective and you're trying to protect your child from everything, because you simply cannot do that. What you want to do, though, is be there for the child when things come up. So that way they are not creating a story behind what happens to them in a way that holds them back when they grow up in life. You have to be really proactive with making sure that the things that happen to your children or your nieces, nephews, grandchildren, that they have you as a support system to say, okay, I understand this happened. Let's talk about it. Let's work it out. So that way, by the end of that conversation, they are not left in a space where they're living in fear because of that situation, but they view it from a space of empowerment. And they recognize they have a choice and the ability to decide to choose a way of seeing that situation in a way that gives them power. Okay. Trust and faith. Is there a difference between trust and faith? Now, those words can be synonymous with one another. They can be similar. They can even be the same, depending on who you ask. But for me, when I think about trust and faith, I think of two things. So when I think of trust, I think of someone outside of me. I think of trusting a friend, right? Trusting a girlfriend, trusting family, right? Trusting that a person will do what they say they will do. That's what I think of with trust, right? Trusting something outside of myself. Now, when I think about faith, I think about faith in a more of a intangible understanding that something is going to happen. Okay. And that is more of a internal thing. That is more of a me coming from me. It's almost like a faith or a trust that is radiating outside of me, but materializing in the world the way that I see fit or feel. Okay. So faith is more of a connection from yourself to the quote unquote outside world, which we know is truly an expression of who we are, right? An expression of consciousness, this outside world. And so when you have faith, it is like with manifestation. You decide this is what you want. You do other things that you need to do to align yourself with that. And you simply decide and move forward and walk into it with faith, with the understanding that it is yours. You see, and that is the difference. So that essentially explains how I see the difference between trust and faith. Trust is trusting something outside of you that you essentially have no control over directly, another individual, essentially. Whereas faith is something that you do have control over based on mindset, based on understanding spiritual principles. Okay. All right. Consciousness. Is consciousness the healer? That is a good question, and I like it. I think so. If you were to say consciousness is the healer, and then ego could be the disease. Rather, what I would say is consciousness, when you align with consciousness, you are then able to heal the diseases that were created before when you were being led by ego. So understand that your ego, when it comes to dis-ease, right? Whether it be a physical disease, emotional, a mental disease, right? You want to acknowledge that those diseases stem from an imbalance of thoughts and frequencies. And so when you are constant with that, your body is trying to maintain, your body is trying to, or even your mind, that aspect of you is trying to continue and maintain homeostasis, right? Balance of the body. But eventually over time, the body, it breaks down. It will wear out. It will not be able to continue that momentum, especially if you're in a space where the environment doesn't nurture, harmonize, or protect the body, right? The mind, the spirit. So when your environment doesn't match and your body is trying to continue that homeostasis, eventually, if you don't change the environment, then the body will begin to get tired and break down. And so that is how dis-ease is manifested. So whether you're eating something, if you're not eating the right foods, if you're not active and working out, strengthening your body, eventually the body will create a dis-ease. All right. If you're not mentally allowing yourself to be at a space of peace, right? At least take breaks, rest, then eventually your body, your mind will break down, right? You will experience burnout, you will experience stress, you will experience anxiety. Okay. So you have to make sure you're being mindful about all those things and aspects of what you need in order to remain healthy and balanced. And so when you are constantly stressed, right, then you essentially create dis-ease. This is the ego. The ego is the mechanism that creates the stress. Because if you're constantly feeling like you need to go, 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 and you're constantly coming from a place of separation and not understanding that you are already whole and complete and there is really nothing that you are missing, and you are constantly working, like you're working or stressing, then it is going to create this space of feeling threatened, feeling uneasy, feeling, anxious. And so you have to be mindful that that way of being is not going to be supportive to you. And so as that creates disease, it is through aligning yourself with consciousness and understanding that you are whole and complete, you are a divine being, and that you have everything you need, then you start to bring balance and ease back into your life. You begin to heal. Okay. So yes, consciousness can be identified as the healer, can be understood as the healer, whereas ego can be understood as the disease. What I want you to understand, though, is instead of consciousness being the healer, if you are already aligning yourself with consciousness first, before you have the disease, then consciousness is not the healer. Consciousness is now health, right? Just being healthy. So in other words, the question is asked, consciousness as the healer. Yes. But before we get to having a disease that needs to be healed, let's go before that and go to preventative, right? Already being at a place where we prevent the disease from happening altogether. We prevent consciousness having to heal it by focusing on consciousness being the definition or the symbol or the thing that is health. Okay, so it is just a preventative thing. So, it's amazing to how you can look at this, because it's definitely important to recognize that when you recognize the power of consciousness and the power of your natural state, being a divine being, being a creator of your own reality, when you recognize that is your nature, then everything is already in perfect order. Whereas when you are not sure about that and you are being influenced by the ego, then everything is out of whack and everything is chaotic. Okay. So, yes, consciousness is the healer, essentially, to answer the question. But I needed to elaborate to give you more of a contextualized theory and understanding as to how you can view that question and that concept as a whole. So, those are really the three questions that I thought were the most important to share. Okay, so I'm going to begin to conclude our meeting for today. I appreciate everybody that signed on, everybody that watched. Now, again, what I want you to do is I want you to go and download the Kindle version of this book, The Creator, Manifestation, the Art of Life. This book is an amazing book. So for the next 5 days, all right, today is September 16th. This book is free on Kindle for the next 5 days. So I want you to get this book, download the book, read the book, put up a review, an honest review of the book. And throughout the course, every few weeks, I'm going to be releasing some other kind of form of book. And I'm going to give you access to those books. So continue to follow, continue to be aware, particularly on Manifestation Mondays. During these meetings, I'm going to announce what book that I'm going to actually put up and make free for a short limited time so you can get access to it. All right. So that concludes today. Listen, if you want to be involved in my Conscious Creator Circle, the Conscious Creator Circle is going to give you much more detailed information, personalized information on how you can be a conscious creator, how you can create the reality you want, and thus really maintain, understand, and achieve the goals that you want to achieve. Okay. This is practical spirituality, essentially. And what we are doing is we are taking ownership of the life that we want. Instead of wishing, instead of saying one day, instead of hoping something just happens, we take ownership and we make it happen. We make it happen because it is our nature to do so. All right. This is what we're here to do. This is why we are here to create, to experience the things that we desire. All right. That is what the mission is. So by becoming a part of the Conscious Creator Circle, I basically guide you, walk you through the process of recognizing how you may show up short in achieving your goals and how you can have a very practical and simple approach to achieving the things that you want to achieve and creating the life that you want to have. So all you have to do is go to drabundant.com, go to the top of the website and go to upgrade. There you can see exactly all the things that you will get when you become a member. And I look forward to seeing you there. I look forward to seeing you next week, Monday, for the live call. I look forward to sharing more content with you and hearing back from you. So make sure every moment is a gift. So make sure that you spend that moment in a space of gratitude so that way you can truly experience the abundance that is already there with you right now. All right. Thank you so much. Continue to join me on this journey. Peace and abundance always.